Welcome to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts, the podcast for busy people building climate solutions. We spotlight founders, builders, operators, and investors doing the hard work behind real progress. I'm Ben, co-founder of LMC. We connect climate tech companies with the people who make scale possible. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts. Today, we're going beneath the surface of smart buildings. Dashboards, we know, are everywhere. Pilot projects are endless, but efficiency still elusive. Today, my guest is Andy Frank, founder of Novant and a 25-year veteran of smart building tech, from the early days of Tridium and SkyFoundry to redefining building data infrastructure. Andy believes we're solving the wrong problems, over-engineering complexity, skipping real coordination, and forgetting to ask the most basic question: why are we doing it this way? If your building tech feels like it's stuck in demo mode, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Andy, thanks for joining. For those who don't know you, can you give us a quick intro to you and Novant?
Sure. I'm Frank, founder at Novant. I've been in the smart building space 25 years. I feel like the number keeps going up as I get older.
Yeah.
I've been in space a long time. Came into the 2000s or so. Started at Tridium, working on the Niagara framework. Co-founded SkyFoundry. After Tridium was acquired by Honeywell, did FTD for about 15 years, and then I've been doing Novant for about 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years, I think now. And what we do is a lot of that is the culmination of knowledge and perspective I gained in that first 20 years, which is we need to approach how we deploy technology in buildings differently. The world has changed in 20 years, and we need to make it more accessible because there's so much domain knowledge in buildings, and there's very little cross-section with software engineering. And so these tools have been typically positioned to too technical a crowd, and we're alienating a lot of people that can be contributing to how we improve the comfort and efficiency and sustainability of our buildings. So that's sort of like the mission statement for what we're trying to do. And specifically, we're data infrastructure. We're solving the data infrastructure problem for how do you make the information in that building accessible to all those people in a way that is easy to consume and easy to take action on.
I'd like to start with the surface syndrome in smart buildings. You've shared that a lot of projects stop at visualization, never tackling root causes. What exactly is the surface syndrome from your point of view, and how did it drive you to found Novant?
There'll probably be some key ideas we keep coming back to during this. And I would say, I don't mean to offend anyone, but if you know me, I tend to speak very candidly. Apologies in advance, but I also don't think we do any benefit and favors to the industry by ignoring these problems. So I think we need to talk about them. Building on what I probably talked about a little bit is there's all these different sort of fiefdoms, right? Mechanical engineering, architecture, BMS vendors, system integrators, and they all have their area of expertise. But when that cross section creates gaps, and I think that is sort of the Achilles heel that we've sort of been experiencing, and that's why we ever seem to move forward, because no one's experts, or very few people are experts in where those two different areas of expertise intersect. And so and I think humans in general, if you don't understand things, you create all kinds of sort of internal justifications, like, oh, I don't need it, or someone used to be done this way, so we don't need it. And so very few people, when something is challenging and hard and they don't understand it, it's human nature, I think, to just sort of shift your focus away from it.
Yeah.
So I don't think people, it's not intentional, right? And I think it's just the industry as a whole just sort of keeps moving forward, and no one ever actually presses anyone like, why? Why do we do it that way? What could we do if we do this? Right. They just sort of get swept under the rug too easily. And so I think the culminate, and that's like, it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So it's not any small decision, but when they accumulate, what you end up with is something that's very pedestrian, right? And we're not really doing nearly as much as we can. this isn't rocket science. We've got almost self-driving cars. We've got reusable rockets. I mean, we sent people to the moon in the 60s. Our building should be running better and easier by now. So it's very much a people problem, not a technology problem.
Right. Okay. And is that kind of interface between accessing the data and then doing something with it? And so that's the next question I wanted to pose. Dashboards are everywhere, but inefficiencies still persist. How should we rethink them to surface actionable insights?
Good question. Dashboards can be useless, or they can be incredibly valuable at surfacing what needs to be done. However, that information is useless if you don't take action. So I use the term closing the loop a lot, and I'm not unique in that, I don't think, is unless you close the loop and you make a correction to the building, you're not getting any value from that data. And there are companies in the space that are doing that. I won't say that no one is trying to tackle this problem, because they are. But I think that the correction is what's important, right? The data is there. And I think if you focus your business or your strategy, if you're a building owner, if you sort of focus your energy on that outcome and how you want to correct it, like, you'll naturally realize what data you need. You'll naturally realize what tools you need, instead of the other way around. So I think in this industry, you get sold the solution before you know what the problem is, right? And you need to know what the problem is so you know what the right solution is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's talk about the missing link in cross-team coordination. You've seen partners, consultants, and service teams work in silos. How does that sort of fragmented scope perpetuate surface-only solutions? And in your view, what's the alternative?
Yeah, I think that's, you could almost maybe use my previous answer to that, but I think digging into that, there's all these handoffs. Like, it's almost like a stair step in a building, right? The design team does the design, gets handed up to the construction team. And then there's a lot of work that we're not doing today that we could just flip directly into operations, but that's not what happens, right? An entirely different team comes in and redoes all the commissioning and modeling that probably was halfway done already in the BIM design phase. And so, altruistically, how should this work, right? I mean, a lot of this goes back to the design phase, right? We bake in sort of the data infrastructure and the modeling. And I think that paves over some of the inefficiencies and impediments to how we sort of share that data and work together. But it always comes back to being a people problem, right? And I love the term split incentives. I got it from I can't remember his name. Is Josh Adams, who wrote that book, Healthy Buildings, a couple years ago. Everyone go read that if you've not read it.
Yeah.
But it's like, at the end of the day, this is a B2B business, and business is going to make money, and that's going to be a primary driver, is financial outcomes. And so that's, I think, the challenge is getting everyone to the table. When you have those maybe misaligned incentives for people. And so I think the only way that really happens is through policy, which is not going great at the moment in the US. It's from the owner demand, right? The owner can dictate some of that, but unfortunately, owners are the least educated in this space. So just they don't really know what to ask for, and so often they get swayed and sold in all kinds of ways. That's why I'm a big believer, and there's not nearly enough of these. I use the term trusted advisor. MSI is probably the next best thing, but these are independent people with domain knowledge of building technology that an owner can go to lean on to help them make the best decisions. Right now, they're mostly focused on sort of on the operating side, but I think if they can expand their scope to include the design phase and the construction phase, right, then you've got a domain expert who is guiding owners in their best interests that can maybe help bring some of those people to the table that wouldn't normally be there. And I would say there's also, I see it sometimes, and not as much as I used to maybe, but I think there's people are sort of afraid to show their work, right? get called out and as a problem, right? You feel like you did something wrong, and there's a that's a negative feeling or perspective on whoever's the part of that. And I think the partners that I see that do the best job of pulling everyone to the table makes everyone feel empowered and makes them feel like they're part of the solution. And so the earlier, and this is, James has been preaching this forever, right? You've got to get all your stakeholders to the table. You've got to build a team. You've got to build consensus about what you're trying to accomplish so that everyone feels like they're part of the solution. Because if you don't do that, right, you have it multiplies the challenges you have with working with that particular stakeholder or vendor or building owner. So I don't think there's any like shortcuts to get here. I think we just need to keep sort of as an industry, keep pushing this forward and hope that, over, X many number of years, right, we do get to the point where this is easier. So
getting people to the table, I think, is always going to be a smart move, and it allows you to challenge thinking or to challenge outputs. And I know that you are comfortable challenging clients with the idea, why do you want to do that, or the thing that they want, or when they want to request a flashy feature. How do you coach teams to dig into purpose so each tech choice actually solves a real problem?
I don't know if everyone always likes me when those conversations come up, but I can't tell you how many times there's been a request, and this is from an engineering standpoint, going back to my Tridium, right? Oh, we need to do this. Why? When I was 20 years old, right, you just get whatever. Someone above you, 6 levels, it's just like, you just got to do it, right? And as I got older and older, I obviously got some more leverage to push back on that. And often they don't know. Like, it was written in the spec. Are you going to use it? We have no idea. How are you going to use it? I have no idea. Then why are you going to pay for it? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't. And that comes back to, I think, those gaps, right? It's almost like a Venn diagram, right? With all these different people. And when you get into those cross sections where there's lack of knowledge, people take, either use precedents or external influences to drive those decisions. And that's where we need to start filling those knowledge gaps. And then hopefully we can mitigate some of that stuff. But I think it always comes back to sort of a lack of understanding of why it needs to happen and what the value is attached to it. And there needs to be people at that table or in that process that are willing to ask those questions and push back, because at the end of the day, you always end up with a better solution. It's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's more robust, and it delivers the value you actually wanted. But if you don't have anyone asking those questions, I mean, you go down the list of projects that they pay a ridiculous amount of money for that actually didn't do anything that they wanted, or whipped out a year later because they were sold a vision that didn't happen. And it's not that technology or that solution is bad or poor fit. Well, maybe poor fit. It's no one actually really sat down and decided exactly what they wanted. It was an outcome. And that's sort of shaped. And that's not something. I mean, that's something I arrived at after 30 years in the space. Like, as I always started at the end. What are you trying to accomplish, and we'll work backwards. And I will say, and I find saying this as a technology company, the technology is the least important part of that equation. Right? If you're buying technology and you don't know the solution or the value or the outcome you're trying to achieve, or you're doing it backwards, right? You've got to start with what you're trying to achieve, why, what are you going to do with it, how are you going to leverage it, what's the impact going to be to your business or your building or your tenants, right? And then you work backwards to find the best technology fit and the best partner.
Yeah. Common sense, but I can just imagine hundreds.
You say it like that, yes, but that's not how it happened in practice, right? It's like reading after meeting after meeting, and by 3 months in, no one really remembers how the original question came up, and so they just keep towing the line. So it's yeah.
Do you have a way to make sure that is always rounded off as an outcome for every meeting? Is there a sort of workflow that you use?
So we are in a I get lots of questions like this, and it's good and bad. So as a technology vendor, like, we don't do service work. So we're actually not at the table in most cases. And as long as we have competent partners who can deliver and answer those questions, that's fine. And then our best partners know when to bring us in when it's appropriate. But most of the time, they're fine by themselves.
Okay.
So we don't know what happens a lot of the time. And it's really at the quality. And I use partner here. These are typically system integrators or MSIs or energy consultants. I mean, these are third-party people coming into buildings. And most of them are pretty good. Most of them know when to push back, but what happens is you get into one of those gaps, right? They don't know enough about the question or the action item, but maybe they don't understand it enough that it should be pushed back to a vendor or something. So there's sort of this sort of no man's land, I think, that things get end up in, and that at some point, right, it's too far down the road. You've got delivery dates, deliverables, contract expiring, and you just have to push these through. So I think it just, unfortunately, it happens sort of naturally to some degree. But I think that's an opportunity for these trust advisors, these system integrators, MSIs, what do you want to call them, right, to level up, right? And I think if they can gain competency and speak authoritatively on these things, they can really, I think that's appreciated. That's a need. Like owners will appreciate that they're them in the right direction, as long as it's independent, right? You can't be someone who's also selling you a product, right? Because obviously you've got conflicts of interest there. But as long as you're independent, right, I think that helps guide that process. It's smoother, it's faster, it's easier, and it's going to be closer to what the client really want in the first place.
Yeah, it's just having that extra bravery to push first, so that there's better outcomes at the end, rather than the easy yes. Yeah, sure, we can build that. Yeah, sure, we can build that. And like you said, you come back to this loop, and you're a bit like, well, this doesn't actually do what we wanted to do. It's like, well, that's true, because we did all these other things.
So I'll say though, that's my lazy. I'm lazy. I always find the easy, simplest button. But obviously that's okay, right? So we also get a question from an engineering standpoint. Oh, can you do this? I was like, yeah, we could, but if you do it this way, you can do it today, and it's free, and you don't have to wait for anybody. And then it's not this boutique special feature that's going to break in 2 years. And so I think that part of that process is also, it's not necessarily that what they want isn't valid. It's that their perspective on how it needs to be done is fixed, right? And if they can be more open-minded, that there are alternative ways to arrive at something that's very similar or close, that is often cheaper or more efficient, right? You need to have that open-mindedness. That's something I see people hang up a lot. I think it has to be done this way just because they've seen it done for the past 20 years this way, or that everyone in their organization has done it this way. And they're more open-minded to alternative ways to achieve it. I think that's something that people need to sort of buy into more.
Mm-hmm. Well. Yeah. Shall we end with a view from surface to depth? So many smart building efforts get stuck because teams assume, as we talked about, complexity is unavoidable, but often when someone steps back and asks, why are we doing it this way? Or what if we didn't? A simpler path appears, as you've talked through. I wonder, could you share a moment when that kind of mindset shift unlocked a deeper, more effective solution that you can, talk through?
Yeah. I'm not always privy to everything that happens, unfortunately. But we do get pulled in on things every once in a while. And I would say this has happened on more than one occasion. And I would say, without a doubt, the biggest issue we see is people don't engage the BMS teams early enough or in the right way. And so there's this implicit assumption that they're not going to cooperate or they don't have what they need. And so they do a lot of work on integration solutions that are unnecessary. Right. And that's one of the very first things I say. Well, can you just talk back that to the VMS system? Will they let you do that? Right. And they're like, well, I haven't asked yet. And I was like, well, you'll ask. And they're like, oh yeah, they gave us VMS access to that. Right. We don't have to go build all this sophisticated MQT architecture on top of all this stuff, right? With all of this crazy IT networking, because we can actually use access directly. And that goes back, right? You got to ask why, right? You got to engage people, right? Because it's the solution, the simplest solution is almost always there. But you have to stop making assumptions about how other people are going to interact and what they're going to contribute. Right? You got to engage these people early. Sort of broad characterization, but we see that, I would say time and time again, right? People overthink and over-engineer what's needed to be done when a simple solution is lying right in front of them.
I feel like that advice is widely applicable across not just smart building, but in so many things that we do. So thank you very much for your time. I think a lot of those insights are straightforward, and I think you genuinely come from a kind of common sense approach and this sort of inner child. Why do you need it? Why? I think that's just a really sage way, I think, of dialing down to the nub of the problem without feeling like you have to be this kind of yes person. So yeah, I think that's a refreshing take. I appreciate you sharing your insights with us.
And I'll probably just one note in there. I think people appreciate when if you're an expert in an area, they appreciate your feedback, right? Just saying yes doesn't do them any service, right? Because often they might not know. So if you're an authority and a subject matter expert, stand up and share your opinion. Don't be rude about it, but I mean, I think if you share that, I think that builds respect and it builds a better relationship.
Yeah, exactly. If you've got the experience and you've got the knowledge, share it, right? Don't hide behind it.
Doesn't mean that they're gonna go with your decision.
Agree with it.
I think get them the data so they can make a decision on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do like that. All right. Well, thank you very much once again, and I'm sure lots of people will take that approach and find a lot of success with it. Thank you, Andy.
Absolutely.
So, what did we learn? Well, one, most failures in smart buildings aren't technical, they're human. Misaligned teams, siloed decisions, and no one asking why. Two, visualization isn't enough. Data without action is just noise. Until we close the loop, nothing improves. Three, the simplest path is often ignored. Assumptions block progress. Ask early, engage honestly. Most complexity is self-inflicted. 4, outcomes first, tech second. If you don't know what success looks like, no platform will get you there. And 5, trusted advisors matter. When owners don't know what to ask, we need independent, credible voices willing to push back, not just say yes. Big thanks to Andy for the clarity and candor. This is Quick Cuts. Until next time, thank you. You've been listening to the Climate Gap Quick Cuts. If you're building in climate tech, subscribe to hear more from the people making it happen.